Hello, 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 hello. Are you reaching me out there? Am I reaching you? Can you guys all hear me out there? Pete F., good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, sir. We support Canada. Appreciate it, Pete. James Cheeks, good afternoon, Smart Trucking. Hope all is well. Yes, sir, we are, and I hope you are as well, too. Sharp-looking pictures of a Pete here coming up on the screen, donated by SoCal Sandman. Beautiful looking truck, new 389, and it's the high dollar model too. I forget what they call that, but got the polished fenders there. Nice looking truck. Got the DEF tank mounted behind the fuel tanks. Nice looking truck. Raymond Dawson, support from Delaware. Been 21 years and support my brothers wholeheartedly. Thank you, Raymond. Appreciate that. Trucker Hershey, hello everyone, and you're getting out of the hospital tomorrow, and I bet you're looking forward to that. So I know I would be too. Good man. Glad to hear that. Fred Besmer, good day, Smart Trucking from Gary, Indiana. Homeward bound. Fred, I hope you're headed for the Blue Water Bridge, because the Ambassador sounds like it's pretty screwed up right now. Safe trip, whatever bridge you choose. But that's what I'm hearing about the Ambassador Bridge right now anyway, that it's a disaster. Josh Bulldog 361, how are you doing, sir? Paul Hudson's greeting from Northern Illinois, 39 degrees Fahrenheit, and the snow is melting. And you know what? I've got some good weather news up here as well. It's plus 3 Celsius, whatever that is in real temperature, but it's warm enough to start melting the snow. So that's a balmy day, February 9th up here, above freezing, so we're glad to see that. Broadcasting from the woods here in Northern Ontario. Bocash 321 jumping right into it. Dave, what do you think is the worst truck ever? We're just getting into that. I'm gonna need to think about that for a while. But yeah, that's the type of crap we're going to be talking about today. The topic for today is truck models, hits and misses, good ones and bad ones. And I'd be hard pressed to pick the absolute worst. But I'm gonna fit you on that for a few minutes. What else is going on today? There's some interesting stuff going on in the trucking world today. Raymond Dawson, been driving for a while, mostly flatbed, and been thinking about going out on my own. What do you think? Tons of flatbed work around Delaware with all the ports around here, lumber and salt and stuff, Scott's. Raymond, I recommend it, frankly. I made my best money, and I enjoyed myself the most when I was out on my own, and I recommend it. I say give it a shot. That's my vote anyway.
Okay, let's stick to truck stuff today.
So there's SoCal. Hey, SoCal, thanks for the pics. And I wanted to mention there, I got your little video on you flying the helicopters around, and thanks for sending that up. That was pretty cool. And the stretch Volvo as well. But I really enjoyed watching you fly the helicopter, so that was pretty cool. Here's Fred. No, we're headed for the Peace Bridge to avoid the backups, hopefully. Yeah, Fred, I haven't heard that they've got a problem at the Blue Water right now, so a good move on your part. Lee Harvey, bet those border agents are losing their minds at the Windsor Bridge today. Okay. I hope they are. Search for the truth. I'm looking to buy an International Lone Star, and one of the misses on my list, one of the trucks I didn't think were a great success, were the Internationals, but only the ones with the Max Force engines. The rest of them were fine, but I think those Max Force engines, as an example, were a big miss for the trucking industry. So there's one. What else do you guys think about misses and hits?
Raymond Dawson, thank you very much for the new membership, by the way. I hope you enjoy the perks you get along with being a part of our channel. Thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Josh, do I have any more Max stories? No, not lately, Josh. Not lately. I've mentioned on this channel before, I thought they were good old trucks. I drove one in the early 70s, and that thing was reliable as hell. It was rough riding, but back then everything was rough riding. But no, they're actually, Mac did not make my list of misses. And you know what else I put on my list of misses where just about any truck that General Motors built, the Brigadiers, that kind of stuff, I never thought those trucks were up to much good. So there's a second example of what I consider a miss.
Lisa Marie Coleman coming in with the 5 beans today. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Glad to see you in the stream today. My friend got his CDL hired by CR England, quit less than a week, in less than a week rather, for their awful treatment. Yeah, that's bad to say the least. Thank you very much for the 5 beans, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. You know what? I was just talking to another fellow earlier today, and he had tried to stay on with CR England as well, and he said it was just terrible. It's a shame. It's a shame what's happened to that trucking company. It's a whole younger generation of management there now, and I think those are the guys that have brought it to its knees, because back in the 70s, man, that was one of the best carriers to work for, and it's a shame to see they've gone from the top, from the bottom, and done it in one generation. Search for the Truth. I meant to say Lodestar. That's from Search for the Truth. Okay, I accept that. Congratulations on another well-made video on training. Can never teach enough. That's from Paul Hudson. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, SoCal says avoid CR England like the plague, and what a shame that is, because they, as I say, they were good. By the way, SoCal, you're a young, fit-looking guy there. I was noticing that in the videos. I had you pegged for an older fella for some reason, but you're a young, fit, fresh out of the military, in shape kind of guy. What else? Bowcat 321 says the first generation Cascadia and the Tesla. You know, I never even thought of the electric trucks for the misses, and so far Tesla has been a miss. Now, oddly enough, I put Cascadia in my hits list, like for successes, but not because they were a great truck. But Freightliner builds them to make money, and Cascadia pretty much has dominated the market since they came out. They've been a huge financial success for Freightliner. They put them at the top of the heap in the industry. So I guess, you know, as far as Freightliner is concerned, that's a pretty damn successful truck. So I had the Cascadia in the success list, the hits list for the trucks. Just interestingly enough, I don't think anyone thinks they're a great quality build, but God, they sure sold a lot of them. Matthew Pesco, I heard that MaxForce works great once you take the emissions equipment off. Mexican companies have scooped many of them up. That, you know what, that could well be true too. I don't know anyone that's tried that with a MaxForce, but that could well be the case. But yeah, they brought International to their knees here financially back in by about 2010. They just about destroyed that company. What else? What else we got going on? Dave, do I think cab overs will make their way back? Christopher Van Dyke. What is the... Oh, Fred can help me with this. I'll be all right here. Not Tesla, but the other leading electric truck, Nikola, are building a cab over right now. And I think it's a good-looking truck. And I do hope that they find their way back into use in the trucking industry. I like them. And these Teslas these Nikolas are good-looking trucks. They've got a good design team up there. If they could just get through their legal issues, I'd love to see those things come out in the road.
Okay, so we're going to get to the hits and misses now?
Another hit. Kathy wants another hit. Volvos. You cannot argue with Volvo's success in the trucking market in North America. They got off to a slow start, and that was primarily because General Motors was building them. And I talked about the junk that GM produced, including their own Brigadiers. But when Volvo set up their own plants and started building them themselves over here, you can't argue with their success. Those in the Cascadias are the large majority of what you see on the interstates these days. And, you know, so you can't argue with the numbers. They're a hugely profitable truck for Volvo. So you've got to put it in the successful column. Another truck you've got to put in the successful column are the T600 series from Kenworth, starting with the early Anteater and getting right up to the 660 and the 680. Those things have been a great truck in all sorts of ways. They've made Kenworth a lot of money, but they're a great driver's truck, very comfortable. They turn very well. They're definitely Paccar, in my opinion. They're definitely Paccar's top entry into the setback drop nose axle truck arena. I think they're the best that Paccar makes. I'm not that wild about the 579s, but I think the 660 or the 680 or whatever it is right now, beautiful trucks. Lone Star comes with a Cummins, and it's one of the best looking trucks on the road. That's from Camaro LT1. Are you keeping busy these days? Not particularly. Muppet. Best looking badge, Dave. Thanks, Muppet. How are you doing? How's things over in Australia? Andrew Pfeiffer. I was assigned a 2016 Mack Pinnacle for running the ice roads, and it's been in the shop more than it's been on the ice currently at a small camp 240 kilometers up on the ice. And so much of it right now is getting the parts that you need for these things. And it's not just Mack. It's everyone's suffering for parts. I heard the other day that someone had managed to secure a chassis, but they figure the delivery point, and I think it was a Pete, was a year and a half out from when they've ordered the truck. But at least they know they're going to get it. They've confirmed the build, and they've confirmed the truck, but that's the waiting time this guy had, was like a year and a half. What's your opinion of TMC and Maverick? I would like to go into flatbed trucking. Nick Sperry. A little off topic, I guess, but Maverick has a really good reputation. TMC, I like the way they do things, but I gather they've got some cowboys there that need some more training. But Maverick has an excellent reputation. I think TMC is a good carrier. I just think they need to be a little more selective on who they're hiring. SoCal. I'm 58. Really? You're 58? You look like you're like 38. Man, I wish I was in the same kind of shape you are. You look excellent, man. You obviously take good care of yourself. GP Transco. Hey, GP. I'm glad you could join us. Unfortunately, he's talking to Bocash here. He says, unfortunately, the 379 is not great for fuel mileage and maintenance cost-wise. We wouldn't be able to pay our company drivers the high pay that we do if we had a fleet of 379s. No, there's no doubt that the Cascadias are far more cost-effective than the new Pete's. The 379's not being that new, but mine you could get. The best I ever got with my truck, my 379, was like 7 miles to the gallon, 7.1 I got one day, and I was going eastbound in Wyoming downhill with a tailwind and a light load. You really had to be lucky to get good fuel mileage out of those trucks. Great trucks, but they weren't built for fuel economy. Christopher Van Dyke. I'm 51 years of age. I'm starting to feel good. There's a lot of older fellows in the chat. Fred says TMC has great flatbed training videos. Yeah, you know what, Fred? You're right. I've seen a couple of those, and yes, they do, and they keep their equipment really sharp, and that's something else I like about TMC. Top-notch equipment. SoCal says he doesn't eat truck stop food. That helps him out. Yeah, that would probably help. I wish I could have gotten out of that habit. But back then, the truck stop food was a whole lot better than it is now. Now it's just like Subway. But GP Transco, I know this is from Bocash to GP Transco. If he was going to buy a new truck, he'd rather buy that. I could handle a new Cascadia. Yeah, though GP sent a new Cascadia up here, and it was a really nice truck. It was a really sharp truck, completely different than my 379. What else we got going? So you know what else I have on my hits list? Speaking of Pete's, all of the classic Pete's, the 359, the 379, and the 389 did really well for Peterbilt. All of those trucks made money. That model of truck made money. 379 was the best-selling truck that Peterbilt ever manufactured, and there were more of them on the road than anything else from Peterbilt, and they were a great selling truck. And I've had a couple of them. This one that I've still got here now was a really good truck for me. It just, back then fuel was a lot cheaper. You couldn't expect great fuel mileage out of them, especially mine being a flat top. But good solid trucks. I enjoyed very much driving it. I spent a lot of time in that truck, so it was important to be comfortable. Mac, this is from Josh Bulldog. Dave, Mac CH613 was the best Mac model. Okay. Josh, I don't know a whole lot about Macs. I'm trying to think of the name of the one that I see around here every once in a while, but okay, I'll remember that particular model. Thank you. James Cheeks is talking about TMC, I assume. He says he demands that the trucks are taken care of. And if we are talking about TMC, that certainly is the case, that they always look sharp. Josh says the T700 is junk. That's Josh Bulldog's version of the T7. You don't really see that many T7s except on construction sites, but the T8 was a really good truck, and a lot of them, and like Muppet would know, there's a lot of those over in Australia, and those are Pete's or Kenworth's. According to Kenworth, the T8 is their best built, most solid truck, which I found interesting. Not a pretty truck, but by Kenworth standards, really well built. Roger Penske's here, California 60 from Monero Valley to Banning. In the reconstruction is complete, and they are just putting the finishing touches on some striping and lighting. Gorgeous, smooth concrete 3 lanes. Well, that's nice to hear. Good to hear that. And Roger, thanks for sending up that picture of the Canadian truck to us there. Appreciate it. Sharp looking truck. SoCal says those pics that were on the screen earlier were of a hurricane truck I spotted in a pickle park. I was trying to see what it said on down the trailer, and the picture wasn't big enough. But that was a hurricane truck. But sharp looking rig, man. Sharp looking rig. High strung lineman life. Should I buy a new Pete 389 or an older one that would need a little bit more work? Oh, that's a tough call. You get warranty with the new one. The new ones are running around $200,000 for a new 389 Pete. A lot of money, and you're still risking that emissions engine issue. Tough call. If you've got a really good Pete dealer right close to where you live, I would ask them to see what they're seeing. If they get like a really good used 379, if they knew the owner and sold it to them from before, I'd be maybe inclined to go for the 379, but that's your call, man. Tough decision to make. Camaro LT1. Mac is a Volvo in disguise these days. I keep forgetting who owns who now, but does not Volvo own Mac? Is that not the deal anymore? I believe that's somebody bought Mac out, or has the distribution rights to Mac up here, at least anyway. King and Queen of Trucking. Hello, everyone. Hey, man. Glad you guys could join us. Welcome. Scott Kuhn is here. The T700 is a T2000 with a new hood. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. Kind of the same rig. Scott Kuhn, thank you for that. What's your favorite truck that's not Paccar? Well, you're gonna slap me around for this, but I used to really like the old Freightliner cabovers, and I had a buddy that, well, he still has one, and if you get them, like not the cheap ones out of the factory, but the older loaded cabover Freightliners, they were pretty damn nice trucks, and I'd have to say that a non-Paccar truck that I liked the old style conventional Freightliners, but I like their cabovers even better. I thought they were sharp. T-Bone 223 is here. What's going on, fellow drivers? They're SoCal. Yeah, Volvo owns Mack. Yes. And Bocas says Mack owns Volvos. Well, they own each other, but they're definitely connected. What's a good first truck to buy, Cascadia or a Peterbilt 587 or 579? What do you think, Carlos? Depends on your budget. You know, Cascadia builds a good truck, but you've got to be aware that being the most popular truck on the highway, sometimes it's tough to get into their dealership network for repair work if you don't have your own shop. Having said that, one of the things I like best about the Cascadia is you can get the Detroit engines in them, whereas with the Peterbilts, you can only get a Paccar motor, which seems to be pretty good, and the new Cumminses, which are kind of either really good or really bad, depending on how, your luck. That's a tough call. I would go for the dealership that's closer to you, that you're more comfortable with. Go in and talk to them about how it's going to be to get in and out of there for service and warranty work, and base my decision partially on that. The Cascadia is going to come in cheaper, so things to consider. SoCal says he learned to drive in a cab over Freightliner. We had some of them up here as company trucks years ago, and I liked the truck, but I worked for Trimac at the time, and Trimac just ordered the cheapest trucks they could buy, and we were running up here in minus 40-degree weather, and the cabs weren't even insulated. I damn near froze to death in that stupid thing, and I think I've told a couple stories about how inadequate the wiring system was, but my first truck actually was an International Transstar 2, the first one I ever drove, cab over. Where's that gone? SoCal says he'd go with the Pete. Cascadia is cheap inside. I'd go for the Pete, says Camaro. I'll tell you know what? I was in one of the new Petes, and they're kind of cheap inside too. They're a lot of plastic. Yeah, Jeff Reese says the new Detroit engines are solid in these new Cascadias. I think the Detroit engines are the best engines for handling the emissions and staying out of the shop. That's the report that I'm getting on those. So it's that's a big plus in Freightliner's favor, those engines. That was a smart move to invest in Detroit. I think they actually own Detroit now. And here William Carey said, "Hey William, how are you? Good to hear from you. That Renault actually owns Mack now." Huh. Geez, I don't know. I've lost track, but I know you know what you're talking about, so I'll take your word for it. That's interesting. Renault is huge as well. There's no shortage of money there. What else did I have for? I think I said all the classic Pete's sold really well. Another truck that I consider a miss, and only because the sales never really got to where I thought they should be. Western Star always built a good truck, and I could never understand why they never really took off, why we didn't see more of those on the road. So, and I even like the styling of the drop nose Western Star. I think it looks all right, but they just don't seem to sell the way the Cascadias do, for instance, or the Volvos. But I think I'd have to call Western Star a miss just because their sales are so low, which is unfortunate because I think they're a nice truck. Yeah, SoCal, Renault is French, yeah. Far as I know, but I'm not really up on my European stuff too much.
Hit the comment above SoCal.
Bellwinder, I drive a 2018 Cascadia, never had any issues with engines or emissions. And 2018, so it's a few years old already. So that's good to hear. Yeah, I think they're building a good truck. And they certainly have captured the market. And you wouldn't think they'd have, God, they own like 50% of the market almost. Freightliner does because of that Cascadia. So they've got to be a pretty good truck. And you've got guys like GP Transco buying 100 or so at a time. They're obviously having good luck with them, or they wouldn't be buying them. SoCal says he likes the new Western Stars. Yeah, I kind of like the look of them, and I drove Western Star a long time ago now, back in '79. I drove one of those for a company truck, and it was beautiful inside. It was beautiful, and back then they were still building them. They were hand built in Kelowna, BC, and they sent me to the factory to pick the truck up that I was going to be driving. It was pretty cool. They just built it in one spot, right there. No assembly line, no nothing. So there was really good quality control, and I really liked that truck, but it was heavy. It was the company that owned it complained that it was heavy. Dave, what is your favorite Miss truck? I'm not sure I know what you mean, Bokesh.
Text messages.
Yeah, my favorite Miss truck.
There's no such thing.
Oh, probably Western Star. You know what else was a miss? Were the Ford trucks, except for that big cab over they made, the CL 9000. Those were a nice truck, and they sold really well, and they were wonderful to ride in. They were one of the first air ride cabs, and I thought, they were a great truck and a good looking cab over, but they are a thing of the past, sadly. High Strung Lineman Life says, I drive almost every brand of semi-truck each day and have to say Peterbilt's and Max ride the best. Well, that's interesting to know. That's interesting that the Max are good. I knew the Pete's rode well. I didn't know that about the Max. Camaro LT1 says the new Western Stars are nice. Yeah, I like them. What's the ride quality like in a cab over? Nick Sperry. Nick, if you set the truck up right, it's really pretty good. Back in the ones that I used to have to work, they were all rubber block suspension, hard spring ride, because we were pulling big weight with them. I was hauling 140,000 pounds with that one for Trimac. So they rode like tanks. But if you set them up with the air ride bunks and full air ride, new way air ride in the back and stuff, and you could even put an air ride steering axle in them now with this new technology, and they just kind of float and bounce around, and they're nice now, just thanks to the new air ride technology that you can put in them. But back in the day, the best you could order from the factory when they were making those cab overs was Freightliner air ride. They were kind of like a double donut on the rear suspension. They weren't that good an air ride system, but New Way came along and drastically improved that. Travis Martin, do you think Peterbilt will stop making hood trucks in the future? Travis, I don't see it. Their sales numbers are just too good on their big hood trucks. I see Kenworth starting to move away from that now with the 990, and I think that's a mistake. I think they should have kept the W9, but I can't see Peterbilt moving away from the big hood trucks because they just sell too well, and that's what they're interested in is money. Do you know, I was just an offside comment here. I was checking the fuel prices here in California. The average price of diesel in the States right now is $4 a gallon. California is $5 a gallon, and I thought, man, that's outrageous, crazy California. I figured out the price of diesel fuel up where I am here. By the time you do liters to gallons and the exchange rate, we're at $5.35 a gallon for diesel fuel up here. So I guess California's not that far off the mark. Or both California and Ontario are ridiculous. GP Transco says, we also hear a lot of our drivers who used to run Volvo say that the Volvo is the smoothest driving truck they have ever driven. And GP, I rode in one once, and that was a long time ago now, and I can tell you, it was a smooth truck. They rode beautifully. At least the one I was in did. So yeah, I can believe that all day long, and I've heard that from other guys too, that they really ride nicely. Yeah, SoCal's got one, and he says he can vouch for that. But yeah, they're a beautiful riding truck. Huh. And SoCal says his is 17 years old and still rides really nice. Ryan Voss says he drove a 2020 Volvo, and it rode really well. Kathy and I got stiff. We were going to go down for a ride. Was that last year or the year before? 2 years ago now. And before COVID even, I think. And the salesman never showed up. He stiffed us. We called on the way down to say, hey, we're on our way. And he said, oh, I'm 200 miles out of town. I won't be there. But we were really looking forward to that. And then COVID hit, and we haven't had a chance to do it since. But one of these days, when COVID winds up here, we'll get a chance to take another try at it. SoCal says fuel is about $3.85 in Missouri. I thought, so that's about right. It was Overdrive magazine that was quoting the average of $4 a gallon down in the States today. So that's probably pretty close, because you get down, like Georgia's cheap, and it gets cheap, south of where Missouri goes and stuff like that. Down into Oklahoma, it gets cheap again. So that's probably a fair average. Alexander says the Pete 362 was the best quality cab over. Yes, it was, and it was their last cab over. Really, was the 362, and they were a beautiful looking truck too. They were the ones with the 3 windshield wipers across the front. Actually, that's not true. They built that cab over that we all call the football, and those were, I don't even count that truck. I kind of forgot about them for a minute. But yeah, the 362, gorgeous truck. Shellcracker Lover, the big Ford CL 9000 was a nice looking cab over back in the day. Yeah, I liked those, and it was freaky to climb into those because of all the air ride in the cab. Like, you grabbed onto the grab bar to climb up into the driver's seat, and it felt like the whole cab was tipping over on you. You look up, you think you're going to land on your back in the parking lot, but those airbags were nice once you got in it and started rolling. Between the air ride cab and the air ride seats, they rode really well. Birdman Trucker, what's your favorite engine? These days, I'd still want to say a Cat, just because I don't need it for the fuel mileage. Cats were never great on fuel. If I had to pick a new engine today and I was picking it for fuel mileage and I was buying myself a new truck, I'd get something with the Detroit engine in it, just for the reliability and the fuel mileage. But back in the old days, and I even like Cummins made what they called a KTA engine back in the 70s, and gobs of power. But again, not very good on fuel. But great motors and easy to fix on the side of the road, but not great on fuel. Depends on what you're going to use the truck for. But where was that? Austin says, have you ever run grain trailers or flatbeds? I did. I never ran grain trailers. Always wanted to. I've run flatbeds a little bit. He's 22. He's up in Alberta, Canada, running open deck and super Bs. I've run a lot of B trains. I like pulling B trains. So, but I've always wanted to try the grain trailers. Like a really nice set of Timpty Beal grain trailers. Beautiful looking wagons. Which truck is the best, the W9 or the T6 or the T660 or the T800? Bocaz, that's a tough question. If it was me, I'd pick the W9. But these days, if you were after fuel mileage and maneuverability, I'd go for the T660. But I was always more comfortable with the hood. So if it was me, I'd probably buy the W9. My favorite truck of all time is an old W9, a W900A. Max Superliner is one of my favorites. Just a dull dash, though. I don't even remember the dash in the Superliner. They were a cool looking truck on the outside. They had a serious hood on those things. I had a buddy that had one of those. But yeah, nice looking truck on the outside. I don't think I was ever in the inside and saw the dash on that. Huh? Interesting choice. SoCal, I missed which was the most powerful truck you ever drove. I got to dial back here. I'll find that later. But yeah, 362, back to Alexander. Beautiful cab over. Diesel is $1.90 a liter in Yellowknife. That's like $5.50 a gallon, Andrew. You wouldn't want to pay that very often. Travis Martin just paid $4.01 a gallon for fuel in Texas today. So that $4 a gallon mark was about right, what Overdrive posted. Grilled Mortal, hey man, how are you doing? Have driven a lot of trucks, but Volvo is the best for comfort and getting into tight spots. So there's a good tribute for Volvo right there. And I hadn't thought about the maneuverability as, opposed to the Volvo as opposed to the Cascadia, but I'm sure both of those are really good for tight spots, as is the 660. But I never worked a setback axle truck, but those guys could turn circles around mine. I'd watch them get into a warehouse dock in about half the time that it took me if it was a tight spot. Dave, what do you think about Sterling? Interesting question. The guys that drove Sterlings absolutely love those trucks, which is, surprising, or I found it surprising. And then all of a sudden they just quit making them, but apparently they were a well-built truck, and the guys that had them loved them. Ryan Voss, the new CDL rules take effect next Monday. Yeah, Ryan, we've been watching that. GP Transco, does anyone in the chat play American Truck Simulator? A fan recently created a nearly perfect GP Transco truck and trailer skim. Looks almost too realistic. We got to check for that. We got to look for that. I don't know if any of you guys, back to the missus, if any of you guys ever drove the GMC Brigadiers, and that was probably a little before the time of most of you guys. Fred Besmer might have driven one, maybe, because he's kind of my age, but God, they were a crap truck. I think they're probably at the very bottom of my list. Were the GM Brigadiers. Yeah, Grilled Mortal. They used to make Sterlings in St. Thomas. That's right, and that plant's completely shut down now. I don't even know they changed it into something else, but yeah, they did. There was a guy locally here that went down and worked for Sterling for a little while. And then all of a sudden they just shut down and he was out of a job. Portuguese trucker, 465 in Virginia and Pennsylvania, 419, says Billy Wallace, in West Virginia. Muppet says rubbish. Which one's are you talking about the Brigadiers, Muppet? Yeah, they were pretty tough. Rubbish. The Sterling I drove would run triple digits, James Cheeks. No kidding. That must have been a custom spec truck, because those trucks generally weren't built to run like that. But if some owner operator had ordered it, or some small trucking company with a high rate of delivery speed, that's pretty damn quick for a Sterling. And I'm assuming, James, that it held together all right at that speed. What else did I want to bring up here? It's international now. I was slamming International earlier, but only because of the Max Force engine. And they're on their way back in now that Volkswagen owns them. And I'm hoping for big things out of International. They made a really good truck back in the day. And the first truck I ever drove was an International, and I drove other ones since, and they were all solid, well-built trucks. They were cheaper to buy than a Paccar truck, for instance. Better quality than a General Motors truck back then. They were a good truck, so I'd like to see them get back in the game the way they were. They had about a third of the sales market cornered at one time, and it was that Max Force engine that brought them to their knees. And well, the only thing the Max Force engine was good for was if you could run a chain around the block, throw it in the lake, you could use it to anchor your boat, but it was no good as a truck engine. Portuguese trucker, I have a 2019 Volvo 760 automatic, 260 and a 216 International 900 Eagle with a Cummins 15 and a manual 18. Love the classic looks of those trucks. That International Eagle, those things had a serious hood on those. It was like looking out over a boardroom table. And I ended up driving one of those briefly in like 1983, I guess it was. And man, I like a nice truck, rode really well, but huge hood on them. Didn't corner that well, but really a nice truck. How about a GMC Astro cab over? Talk about a view. Those things had glass down to your knees. They weren't particularly well built. They were as noisy as hell. Now, I didn't care for them, but they were cheap to buy, and you saw a lot of carriers buy those in a whack because they were so inexpensive. But God, they're not a very well built truck. But yeah, no shortage of glass. The guys up here were terrified of them because if you had a moose run across in front of you, you knew you were going out and riding the moose because the cab over would just stop and you'd spit out through the windshield. So the guys up here didn't care for them too much. Is that a good truck? 2010 Kenworth T8 with a Caterpillar. Is that a good truck? Yes, it is. That is a solid old piece of equipment, as long as it hasn't been abused. But yeah, a T8 with a Cat engine, yep, if it's been taken care of, it'll be a really good truck. I think I've talking about GM Astros, I think I've told the story about that terrible wreck that I saw in British Columbia years ago, and going into Golden, BC, and it was all winding 2-lane road into Golden, BC if you were coming from Alberta. Bad road. And it would get slippery in the wintertime, and there was no guardrail on it, just wire guardrailing. And a team out of Manitoba went through the wire guardrailing and in a cab over Astro and dropped down about 800 feet, almost straight down into the river. And those guys were in a cab over Astro. So the one guy was in the bunk, but the driver would certainly have an amazing view through all that glass of his 800-foot drop down into the river. I just can't imagine. One of the scariest things I can picture in my mind was that poor guy riding that cab over Astro down into that river. And it was a long, long drop. Ryan Voss, that's what I have in mind. An 07 though, International Eagle 990. Yeah, There's one Ryan that still works around here, and it's actually got the Eagle logo painted on the sides the way they came from the factory. Nice looking truck still. And God, what's that guy? He hauls lumber with it up here, and I still see it every once in a while. Although lately only in the good weather. But yeah, good looking truck. Obviously a well built truck if it's still running after all these years. Portuguese trucker, likes the big sleeper in the 600 up to 50 foot-pounds of torque. Only thing I don't like is the curves. Volvo for that is amazing in my International 244 wheelbase. So you've got a few trucks. Tough to choose which one you're going to drive in the morning. Mr. Giraffe says Kenworths are popular, but the cabs are tiny. Yeah, some guys, that bothers some guys. It doesn't bother me particularly. The old Western Star that I drove, the 79, I could reach over and roll down the passenger window. And a lot of guys didn't like those trucks because they were so narrow. And the guys say the same thing about the Kenworths. But that doesn't bother me, but I'm not like 6'5" either. I think it probably bothers the bigger guys. But any news on the Peterbilt plant for 389 from Josh Bulldog? Josh, they are still like better than a year behind on production down there in Denton, they figure right now. And they're getting little dribs and drabs of parts, a lot of trouble getting wheels and tires. So it's going to affect them back another year yet before they start to catch up, if things normalize, if things don't get worse. Is a semi in general a good idea to tow my camper? I would drive the truck a few days every couple of months. Do semis stay reliable sitting instead of running? Yeah, they do. If you're not driving them hard, I'm sure they'd be fine to pull a camper. I still bobtail mine around every summer, and it's been fine. It's certainly not as easy to get your camper into a rest area or something like that, or into a tight spot using a truck as compared to your pickup. But yeah, I think that'd be all right. Probably keep the wheel seals fresh and everything. Take it for a spin with your camper every few weekends or so. DanoCube says, have you ever been through Utah? DanoCube, many, many, many times. I like Utah. I used to, God, I was either up or down Parley's once every week, because I would always go into Salt Lake and either go dead across on 80 or drop south on 15 after that. And I generally stuck to I-80 for the year, unless I was loading in Yuma, Arizona, and I would run along the bottom. But the lettuce only came out of Yuma for a couple of months every year. So yeah, I've been in Utah plenty. Very, very pretty state. Really like Utah. I can see why people live there. I didn't. Pardon me. I didn't think they should have built houses on the side of the 215 and then expect the trucks not to run the Jake brakes on the 215. The highway was there before they built the mansions, but so I didn't agree with that. But other than that,
Mark Byler coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Fuel at $3.75 per gallon in Ohio right now.
hey Mark, thanks. You know, God, the last time I used to, if I was going south, I'd always stop at North Baltimore, and partly because they had the Blue Beacon truck wash there. But my understanding is that that's gone out of there now. I'm sorry to hear that, and I don't know if North Baltimore is the truck stop it used to be. It's been a while since I've been in there. Roger Penske says, "Whoopsie, double bottom flatbed truck on fire in Palm Springs." Well, the wealthy people are not going to like the smoke from that, Roger. Palm Springs being a high dollar area outside of LA. But I like there was a pilot in Palm Springs I used to stop at all the time. I bet you it's still there. I used to stop at it because A, it was clean, and B, it had a Dairy Queen, and C, it was out of the city. So I remember that pilot well. I wasn't a big pilot fan, but I liked that one all right. Mr. Giraffe, as a crude oil driver, the gas prices make me smile. You've got a bit of a cruel streak to you, Mr. Giraffe. Oh, the fuel prices are just going stupid up here where I live, just insane. But about half of it, or better than half of it, is tax, which drives me insane. But there's nothing I can do about that. Travis Martin, you miss the old truck stops. Yes, I do. Because you'd pick your favorites because you knew where the good food was and where the parking lots were quiet at night, and I do miss those. Josh Bolog says misses are all the Paccar MX-13 engines. You know what? I don't know how the production line is doing on those Paccar engines. They started out really well, but had a lot of sensor issues, and now they've kind of lost their popularity. And I don't know if the Paccar motors are selling as well as they did initially or not. You don't hear much about them lately, which makes me wonder. All sorts of guys that were recommending the Paccar engines in their Kenworths and Pete's now are recommending Cumminses, and it makes you think that the Paccar has had more issues. And it is like a small liter engine too. So if you're doing big heavy work with a small liter engine, eventually they give out, just because that's just the nature of the beast. The cubic inches mean more than anything, in my opinion. Bocash, have I ever been to Eastern KU? I'm not sure where you mean by that, Bocash. Been to that pilot in Palm Springs many times, SoCal. It was a good spot too, and there was a spot where I could back into and not get hit. That was one of the things I liked about that pilot. I could get the whole thing straight, and I was pretty long, so I could get the whole thing straight, stuff it back into the hole if it was open, and not have to worry about the truck too much. Wander and have a Dairy Queen, and it was quiet and peaceful out there. Yeah, Muppet says $1.75 a liter where he is, and it's like $1.80 a liter right here where we are right now, Muppet, which is awful when you convert all that to dollars and cents and gallons. But we've kind of gotten used to it now, the price of doing business. Noah says, my great grandfather raised me and drove for 55 years. Used to tell me about these trucker burgers all the time. See, 99% of those are gone. Those places are gone now. Yeah, it's kind of a win and a loss, because we got some beautiful truck stops out of the deal. Like when the big Petros first came out, the TAs were never that great. The 76ers were good, but when the Petros started coming out, man, those were classy high dollar truck stops. But those are the truck stops that put like the mom and the pop places out of business pretty much after a while. So it was a win and a lose. The Petros had everything, brand new showers, great restaurants, but the mom and the pop truck stops, I do miss them, and they're virtually all gone now, and that is a shame. SoCal says there's a Little Sisters truck wash out by the Flying J off Bob Hope. Is that the same exit as the Pilot? Because I don't remember there being a Flying J out there, but that Bob Hope exit rings a bell. And I can't remember if there was a Little Sisters out there back then or not. It's been a while since I've been out there, SoCal. But the more Little Sisters truck washes, the better, in my opinion. Bocash, Eastern Kentucky. Have you been to the Pilot and Mount Sterling in Eastern Kentucky? Honestly, I don't think so. I never really went much east of I-75 when I was in Kentucky, because generally I was on my way to Florida if I was down in that neck of the woods. So I don't believe so, Bocash. What do I think about the Cat 3406B and a 1976 Peterbilt 358? Found one of those for sale and just doing some research. Man, I would grab that. Those 358s, you don't see those every day. And 3406B, great engine. I'd be all over that. Like if it's in good shape, if it looks like it's been taken care of, that's a rare truck, and I would be extremely interested in one of those. The 76 truck stop in Blythe, California is still there. No kidding. You know where are the Needles? I used to go to there used to be a Denny's in Needles that I could park out front and go into, and that was, if I was out that neck of the woods, I'd go into that Denny's. I don't know if it's still there or not. And I would pass that, like if I was cutting through Needles on the way south down into Yuma or something like that, What's your least favorite truck and engine combination? An International with a Transforce engine would probably be my least favorite. I still love Little America truck stops, the Portuguese trucker. That one out in Wyoming at exit 68 or 67 or whatever it is was one of my all-time favorite truck stops. And my understanding now is that they've closed the restaurant there, which is a real shame. But that was in my top 5 of very favorite truck stops right across the country. Oh, don't forget the Triple T in Tucson, and the last time I was in there, SoCal, I was stunned because you could shoot a cannon through that place. It was that empty. And boy, back in the day, that place was always busy. But the last time I stopped in there, I come up out of Nogales and stopped. I was up there like lunchtime, and I thought, I'll see all sorts of people I know. And it was virtually empty, and it made me sad because I thought, man, I just don't want this place to be suffering too for money, because it was an amazing truck stop back in its day. Bit of a backyard party parking lot, but a great truck stop. Grilled Mortal, Irish setter stews serve poodles and noodles. You know what? God, the Lettuce King and I were lamenting the other day about the Petro. Years ago, they made what they called Hungarian goulash, and it was smoking good, and they had it over rice. That was one of my favorite meals on the road from Petro. And they ended up getting rid of that Hungarian goulash. It was amazing. I wish they'd bring that back.
Sean McGuire says, just finished my day and the stream is about to end. Right you are, my friend. It's about that time of day where we start wrapping things up. Now I'm going to give Dave a couple more minutes to rant here, and then I'm going to have to cut him off. So if you have any final thoughts for today, Dave, now would be the time.
Alrighty. Brandon wants... he probably means a K100 in show condition. Yeah, those are nice. There's one up here, Brandon, where I live, but it's pretty darn rough. It's too rough for me to even think about doing a restore on it. You don't see those often anymore. The Pilot in Palm, this is SoCal. Pilot in Palm Springs is before the Bob Hope exit if you're going east. Okay, I remember there being a Bob Hope exit because I was always fascinated by the name of the exit, and I don't know. I just assumed that Bob Hope, and I know Bob Hope had a house out in Palm Springs, so I just assumed that if you went far enough you could find his place down there. But I was always in the truck. But they say there's some beautiful houses in Palm Springs. I never explored it, but that's apparently that's a high dollar neighborhood in there.
So Josh Bulldog has the idea here. Dave, what's your 5 hits and 5 misses?
So my 5 hits are, I don't think I got 5 and 5, but my hits, the Freightliner Cascadia, the newer Freightliner Cascadias, because their sales numbers are through the roof. The new Volvos, same thing. They came from behind and have amazing sales numbers now. And between the Cascadias and the Volvos, those are probably the 2 most popular trucks you see on the highway. So there are 2 of my favorites. My third favorite is the 600 series Kenworth. The 600, the 660, the 680, all of the Kenworth setback axle trucks. I really think those have been a great success for Kenworth. And I like all the classic Peterbilts, the 359, the 379, and the 389. So those are my top hits for trucks. The misses for me were the international models with the Max Force engine. So that's 1 miss. The Western Star I thought was a really good truck, but I put it under the miss column because their sales are so low, and I don't think that's justified. I think they're a good truck. I'd love to see them sell more. But right now their sales are so far behind the competition, you have to count that as a miss. Anything that General Motors produced, like the Brigadier and the Astro, someone else brought up the Astro, and I think those were misses. And aside from the Ford CL9000, like they made what did I call that, a Ford LTL or something like that, but I never liked anything that Ford built other than the CL9000. So there's my miss list. So no max on the miss list there, Josh. Just so you know. Well, I guess we should wrap it up for the night. Thank you all for joining us. I wanted to say thank you to SoCal for sending us that footage. I really enjoyed watching that. I couldn't fly one of those damn things. Well, I probably get it off the ground and crash. It would be my luck. I imagine that takes a fair bit of dexterity, but thank you for sending those along. Shannon, I didn't see Shannon here in the chat today. I wanted to thank him for some stuff he sent along. And did you say Shannon? Did you say? No, I didn't see Shannon, but he's usually here. But he sent us some stuff I wanted to chat with him about and laugh about. But and other than that, it's good talking to you all. I always enjoy it. I hope you guys too. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Stay safe. Keep the rubber side down. We're doing a Friday video on the ATA, so I hope you'll tune in for that. Should be a good one. It's just me letting off some steam, and I always like doing that anyway. Take care. Keep the rubber side down. We'll see you on the back haul. Good night, everybody.